Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing. I'm your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us, and sorry for the few minute delay on the show. Technical difficulties. Technology is great when it works. You've heard me say that before many times. Anyway, thank you very much for coming to show 537 of our weekly live broadcast. We've been doing this for over 11 years. We're entering into the holiday season for most everyone. For in the U.S., it's going into our Thanksgiving, which is next week. Translated into, more travel time. People are making an earlier start of it with our government shutdown and having the impacts that it had. We've had the discussion on the show for the past few weeks, adaptability of our marketing programs and so forth, according to the changes in travel considerations for everyone on the holiday and their financial situations accordingly. It seems that everyone has jumped back at what they can get at as soon as possible, although there is the repercussion, the ripple effect of how it's affected other modes of travel. It had already made the news, and we've already talked about it on the show. Train travel in the U.S., which normally is a not discussed venue, of travel, has been very heavily grown for the holiday season reservations. So people being slightly fed up with the flights and in the issue with the trust of having flights, decided to, for those that could put it into their travel itineraries, use trains. So anyways, a little bit of this is towards today's topic. In some senses of it, this will be the first season where if you talk to most people, they've started to use AI in their discovery of travel, not in their completion of travel, but in the discovery travel. It's crept into how people are adapting to the idea of using these tools in a way that benefits them for their direct interest. In this case, travel. Retail is another one that there is a lot of AI use now in tracking, and there's a lot of tools that platforms like Amazon are using more of to help you track. There used to be novelty applications that would say, hey, allow us to watch your search and then tell us when there's something you want to track, and we will track its price. And then you can come back to it and see if you're getting it at the best price that we've seen historically available for it, or whether we think it's going to go up or down in the future, whatever have you. Those used to be really neat applications that some people used, willing to sacrifice their browser history for. Now we're seeing AI replacing it, where you can send off these agents and do things. And this all lends to our topic today for our marketing, where I thought about it. We've been almost AI for 18 months now, almost 2 years. So our topic is when the potential is worth more than the reality. For all of you in the industry, for us watching this show, obviously, because would be boring to anybody that isn't in the industry doing what we're doing. We're fans of buzzwords. We're fans of what's new and upcoming. We go for the shiny object a lot. If it's not blockchain, it's VR and everything else. And we love talking about it. Anybody that's been to any conferences this year, and even a good portion of last year, every topic you have AI in front of it, or AI is a part of the title, even though originally the topic may have not been contrived to have anything to do with AI, but to garner the attention necessary for attendance, AI has been infused into every statement as to the topic. How to clean your toothbrush with AI. We see that in marketing persistently. Products now using AI geared for AI, built with AI in mind. And a lot of times, and we've had this in earlier conversation when AI was first being discussed as AI, artificial intelligence, I was very much pushing back on what was definable as AI, artificial intelligence, and not just machine learning, good algorithms, workflow scheduling, programming as to if-then conditional statements and so forth, and downright formulas. Well, AI has come into more of a process of using data. Now, I still have friends of mine that see it nothing more as a glorified word processor, just looking for the next word after the last word it wrote for you. And to some degree, some of those still work as such. We've learned as a society to understand what educating your AI is, what data is used. We're getting smarter about the fact that when we use AI, we have to understand what was the last time it was taught something, when it saw last this data, how many months ago, weeks ago, hours ago, maybe, that it had access to this data. Are you allowing it to go out into the wild, onto the internet, and continue the research you requested of it? If that's the case, you are opening up for security maliciousness as to people sending back information that has these nested prompts in them, malicious prompts in them. And so there's this hesitancy to do that. We've learned all of these things in the past few months. If you think about it, it's amazing. But the one thing that stays consistent through our conversations, from our perspective, is the potential of what AI could do for us. Well, AI could help us build this. AI could do this. We see the commercials on TV all the time. AI, the potential of what AI could do. We have all of our data everywhere, but it's not talking to each other. We have nothing to talk to it to bring it into one spot. And we're seeing now there are some progressions as to functional usages of AI. That being said, the potential is by far outweighing the reality of it. If you ask and talk to people, and I have different Robert Cole, who looks for and is very objective about his data collection and is looking for not somebody that has an opinion about it, but somebody that actually has working data about what they're doing with it. You get a very high scarcity. All of a sudden, boom, it goes from everybody knowing something about it to nobody actually showing that they're using it in a way that is tangibly valuable beyond testing and sampling. Now, there are a few that are doing that, and there are organizations that have successfully put them in, but they are also noticeably quiet on what they're doing. To mention how we've changed and how we evaluate things, I had a wonderful discussion with a friend not too many days ago about SpaceX and NASA, and how SpaceX was able to get where it is now compared to NASA's longevity, and why did the gap close so fast? And obviously, it's easy to point to the way SpaceX approached projects, where they would fail quick and learn faster mentality, that they purposely were doing things that they knew were not the completed project to find the functions that they wanted to learn from. In other words, they sent rockets up they knew they were going to blow up, or not necessarily blow up, but weren't coming back, or that they were meant to be tossed in the ocean, that it wasn't the whole project. It was, we were testing tiles, or we're testing thrusters, we're testing vectoring, we're testing whatever, structural, whatever it is. It was a progressive. And each time it cost them a lot of money, because it cost them the resources and all the effort they did to make this thing just to test a few things. But what it did do was accelerate their learning process. And from that, they were able to catch up and actually exceed in lots of ways that NASA was never able to. And now let's look at NASA in combination, in contrast to that. NASA, everything has to work right the first time. Everything. The environmental suits for the astronauts, the rockets rescue system, the launch itself, everything has to work the first time it runs, which means that there's a huge amount of fractional testing that has to happen. And it's all simulation mostly, because they can't send up the whole rocket just to have it blow up or fall into the ocean. They can't. That's not the process that they did. Unlike SpaceX, they had to do these micro variations, not knowing how, in combination with everything else that was tested separately on its own, would work together. And so they had to vet it so much to know that the first time was going to be the time that it worked. So how does that apply to what we're looking at for AI? A lot of times with AI, we try to get to the end conclusion without realizing that there's a lot of little steps between us and there. You have to create and fail. And the reason why those that are using AI successfully are quiet about it is because there's a lot of micro failures. There's a lot of tries and didn't succeeds. There's a lot of, that's not something we're going to do because that didn't work. Or we did too much and we had to recoil it back to smaller incremental pieces. We get promised this deliverability of what AI can do for us, this potential, okay? of what AI means to us. And we get sold that it's just as simple as telling it the one statement we need, and magically it'll do it. And some applications get close to that in certain circumstances, certain simplicities. But in general, it's like making a movie. You have to break it down into scenes, and in scenes there is aspects of frame rate. How many images make in a second of time in a film. The same thing with AI. And I learned this, I wouldn't say the hard way, but in the very real way of messing with AI with video. We've seen some really good AI animations as people got better at being able to interpret what they want versus what was produced, and then re-clarifying their prompts, a term we've learned quite well in the past 18 months, 2 years, to be as clear as possible about what it is that they wanted to do. But those are very short circumstances of things. And to make these longer videos of AI require incremental creation. You just don't start with a single statement and say, make a 10-minute video or a 5-minute video or a 3-minute video. It's you do several different segments and then selectively choose out of those segments the cohesiveness of what you want to create as video. We're talking about video today. We're talking about how to use AI. If you look at the potential of AI, well, I want AI to tell me everything I need to know about my marketing program. I want it to look at my data and then give me the insights as to what I should do with it. Maybe even eventually in the future, doing it for me. Google has done a similar thing with this with PMax. Tell us what you're looking for: more money, more traffic, leads, whatever. And give us the money and we'll go fetch. We know our system better than anybody. It's our system, so we're going to use everything our system can do. We're going to make all the content you want. We're going to make all the images you want, so forth and so on. And you let it loose. And then all of a sudden you find out that it's sending business to other businesses. It's using images that are not accurate. It's making false statements because it's hallucinated. Another word we learned in the past 18 months. And it's not doing what you said, what it was supposed to have done, because it started with what you asked, but you weren't completing what you were asking it to do. So it had to interpret what it needed to do it, and it created things to do that. That's the fall down. That's where you catch things going, oh my gosh, I've been feeding business to another company that I've been paying money for. At first, you're happy with the numbers, but in reality, you begin to see that there's a lot of leaks and sometimes contra. So with AI, you have to break down what you're wanting to do in a way that you can build on each section. There's novelty platforms. I'm a king of it. Everybody that follows us on our podcast knows when we review tools and things like this, I'm constantly taking stuff off the shelf and using it. Maybe not for its intended purpose, which is the fun of it, but for what I think it can be beneficial for hospitality marketing, hospitality improvement. And what you often find is that there's these programs that will do one thing very well, promise it does more than the one thing, but it doesn't deliver. SEO optimization. It'll highlight pretty much the same information that other previous non-AI programs used to give you that you manually would then use information for. But these ones now add an interpretive value, okay? And from that, it says, well, your ad campaigns are producing at less than 15%. Now, technically on a spreadsheet, you could have seen that before, but it seems more magical when a program shows it to you in a less cluttered screen. The issue with it is that you may not have defined what you were asking for in terms that it actually is a useful number. When you're asking for AI to interpret your data, you have to quantify what it's to be looking for. What are the criteria, the variances that would deem it to be valuable to highlight, and what the values are that it's being compared to know if that is a good, bad, same as function. Long before you even get to the what should I do about it phase. And you'll find that a lot of times these what should I do about it phases are kind of Captain Obvious. Well, your campaign's not performing because you're not spending enough money. Google's been telling me that on my Google ad accounts since the day I built the ad is you're not spending enough money. You're well below your budget. Yes, you can be below your budget. Because remember, they're wanting you to spend money with them. So their motivation of telling you that is not always because it improves performance. But anyways, I digress. The idea with AI is to have stepped goals. The belief that you want to eventually have an interface that is helpful in its process to you, and then eventually insightful and prescriptive in its process with you, is wonderful. Build that construct. That's the long solution. The short solution is, can I make AI log in and connect to my data and extract the key features that I want to, that I would do looking at the data? That's step one. Step two, can I put that data in a place or in a format that another AI agent, now we're going to get into the terminology of this stuff, can take and compare it to another data set that I had another agent create for the contrast that I'm asking it for, like my ad production versus my revenue production. Okay, great. Now, do I have another agent that will go over and take that result and compare it to historical comparisons, trend, patterns, pace, and make those comparisons? Great. And it comes up with a sum. And each one of these require where do you store it and create the accessing understanding that the AI does of these things. And then you keep stepping that on till eventually you get to the point where these are automated. They're automated as to going to get the information. They're automated into what they do with the information. They're automated in how they present the information. That's a wonderful construct, because now when you wake up in the morning, instead of you having to log in, discover, find, look at, extract what you need, compare it to what you have to also open, log in, and connect and extract from, it's now doing this for you. Now, we've had that functionality for quite a while when we've talked about RPAs and so forth, robotic programming, where you can have it go function and do things. If you're good with your ChatGPTs and your all the other platforms, the ChatGPT is kind of turned into the Kleenex of tissue paper, right, or Xerox of copy machines. When you go into them, you may now notice that there's an agentic or agent function in there. If you haven't, by all means, look at it in the toolbar down below. One is where you allow website access, which opens a little bit of Pandora's box. The other is that it's an agent, and the agent can go out and actively look on its own browser build more information for you specific. Like, okay, you're asking me about information. Rather than me just discover the data and bring it back, the turning on the agent means that I can actually open up a browser needed to go find what I need and pull back. That's where we talk about the education process. And for those that may not be familiar with all of this, when the chat, you don't allow a website access and you're not using an agent, you ask it a question. It's referring to the data that it is learned from. The website's data sets that it was able to be given access to, that it was able to look at and see and have these data sets, okay? And it comes back with an answer. That's one. If you open up the web, it'll take and use the same data it had access before, but it'll also see if there's other data on the websites, that it can look at that update the data that it's already had access to. It's the other. Agents allow it to open up a browser to go search for aspects, whatever data it needs to answer what it is you've asked it to do. This agentic function of this is what we're really talking about, is creating little agents, little bots, minions that will do specific things you've designed it to do. Now, there's other platforms like Make and N8N, which now allow you to take these agents, these functions, and connect them to each other. Like you're asking, and this is what creates what's called MCPs, which are just aggregates of lots of little agents doing certain things. A case in point, we did and I've used this as a reference before, we did an agent that was for calls. It would answer calls, and one thing for a resort. And one thing that was always helpful for it to be what code is called off script, which is to answer things that weren't in the flow of what we're wanting. We're wanting to take reservations, answer questions, whatever have you, or direct them to reservations and what have you. But the user might ask questions that aren't in that workflow, like what's the weather, or how are flight costs, or what events are going on for those dates, that kind of thing. And if it's not in your workflow, it'd be like, I'm sorry, I just need to know if you need a reservation or something. That's where we get the frustration with AI. It's like when you go to the call centers and they're like, press 1 for this and press 2 for that. That doesn't solve everybody's problem. You keep banging to find out somebody live so you can talk to them. So the more you can create an agent to run off script, the better. So I created a lot of things that it would do before it answered your phone. It would go ping a website for weather, it would ping a website for air prices, ping gas prices, it would ping traffic, it would ping local events on websites that had these sources and API data that I collected pulling for those sources. so that when they answer the call, and we do like that, and then when you answer the call, and if the guest on the call asked about anything that data was usable for, it would already have that information usable to answer the question. That's the same similarity with what you do with these micro agents, these mini agents that do all these things. Each one does a certain thing. It may not always be needed all the time, but it's done or is available to be done when and if it's needed. That's under an umbrella of an MCP, which basically is a bigger agent to the littler agents. Okay. It's a little bit like if you went to a store and like a Home Depot or Lowe's, or internationally for a big box place, just a big store, just tons of everything. And you don't have the time to go look up and down every aisle trying to find what you're looking for. You need to go to the place that has it. So you ask for help, and the help comes over and says, "May I help you?" Yes, I'm looking for a pipe fitting. And they walk you to row 11, aisle 11, shelf 12. There's the pipe fittings. That's what a MCP does, is that it knows everything about what it is in control of, and it can adapt, because that same person that might get asked by another person, "Hey, I need an electrical wire." It knows about those too, because it has a little agent that knows it's on aisle 10, row shelf 2 kind of thing. So agents are like micro functionalities that are collectively put together in platforms like N8N and Make, and there are others, that you then create a larger construct that says, now this MCP can do this stuff. It does weather, or it does local information. Now there's another MCP that's connected to all your reservation systems, and you have all of this branched out, and they're all connected to how they function. So if you want a program to run with your reports to say, okay, I need these things to log into the systems and do this, pull these informations, put them in these data sources to make it available for this, and then this, and then this, and it goes on and on and on. Now you're using AI. That's great. How many of you have done this? And I know some of you have, and then those that are on the Hospitality Marketing Club with me, there is a proportionate amount of you that have done this, because this is what we talk about, how to create these things. This seems to be our most recent conversation in some ways. The ability to make what you need to do is both time consuming, not just in the practicality of functionally going to these platforms and doing it. It's breaking down what you're doing into the steps that are necessary to make these. To me, that is the hardest model. I've 2 steps forward, 3 steps back many times. I thought I'd say, well, I just wanted to do this thing. I want to make this agent do this thing. But then I start making it, and I realized, no, before I can make it do that, I actually need something else to make this that I'm going to want to use for this. So now 2 steps back, and I got to make that. Next thing you know, I'm so far back into the kitchen, I never made it to the front door, because I realized that to get closer to the end product, you actually have to get farther away from it. The more you get back to the more basics, you do it. Now, there are faster and easier ways, and there are platforms that are getting better and faster at this. One of my favorite, we've talked about it on the podcast many times, when we talk about creating applications, is a platform called Lovable. Google just came out with a new one, Opal. I think it is Opal. I say that. I'll put it in the show notes to be correct. Sorry. But Google just came out with one, which is, it literally describes it as a crossover between N8N and Lovable, 2 platforms that I use. N8N is very much visual, connect the dots, like a workflow. Like if you did chatbot workflows, N8N is a very understandable platform, because basically what you're doing is every little square has a function to it that is defined, and you define it and you add whatever you need to and connect it to wherever you need to. And then you build other ones and you connect them into the process of availability to a workflow. So as you ask it to do something, you literally watch as it goes through the workflow visually to get to what it is you wanted to produce or be part of. That's what N8N does. Lovable, you in a way talk to it, more than another. You type to it, and you define what you're wanting, and it creates it, code and all. And then you keep refining it. It keep giving you suggestions. You want to build this part, or is this more important to you? What else you want? And you cultivate the relationship. And it tests and tells if it breaks. This as well. It's broken. Let me go see if I can fix it. I found what the problem is, or no, we can't do both of those things together. Whatever. And you go through this process, and it literally builds the app. And if you want to, then you take the whole thing and you put it on your own server and run it, or on platforms like GitHub or what have you, and run from there. Put it on your subdomain if you want to, what have you. I made some really fun. I just made a schema app, which is rocking. And then before that, I did a employee engagement platform app. And anyways, It's amazing what you can do with those things. The issue is it doesn't do everything you need it to do. It does the function of what you want it to do if you give it all the pieces that it needs. You still have to create a data set or a location for a data set and security of accessing the data set and on and on and on. So there's little pieces to this. You're just going to say, oh, I want you to take this. Sure, I need access to it if it requires access. I need a place to store the data that I'm taking from it. I have to have a location for it that has to have proper authorization and connectivities. It will do those things for you, but you have to be specific about filling in those little blank spots. It understands conceptually what you're asking it to do. You just need to be giving it the pieces to the puzzle to build the puzzle. This is where the difference between our topic of where potential is worth more than the reality. I can guarantee you, because I've been to these conversations this year, even in the budgetary conversation processes, everybody's talking about using AI next year. Well, we're going to make AI do more of that. Really? How? How are they going to? How is AI going to do more than that? Well, we'll find a platform where there's. We were told there's a platform. It's like then it gets into the wait a minute. So you've been talking about vaporware, that you just want AI to do this for you. You're planning on AI doing for you, so we don't have to hire a person to do this, or we might let go of a person to do this to save the costings that you said it's going to do. But you actually don't have a mode process of putting AI in, or exactly what AI is going to do and who has that AI and what is the security of AI. If you keep up with the news locally, Ed did this as Ed Sedonge, guest on our show, but your dear friend as well, brought up the fact that the EU is changing its perspective on personal information and consent, which has always been really one of the only governmental organizations globally that has any common sense to containing AI's accessibility of data and privacy and so forth. And it has been a benchmark for California and all the other consent-driven CCP and everything else compliance of stealing or taking data without permission. And they're relaxing some of their rules as to what they define as personal information because the business tail is wagging the dog right now. It's putting them behind in AI development. They can't effectively build good AI in contrast to what China and the US is doing and anybody else outside of these parameters of restrictions because they don't have the data accessibility to become better AI tools. AI is contingent upon the data that it has availability to. It's only as smart as what it's aware of. And smart being that if you're going to talk about planetary stars, it has to have a website that has data about, or data platforms, places that they can pull data about stars. If it doesn't have it, it's going to come back going, I don't know. What's worse yet, it might come back going make up, names of stars that don't exist. That's the problem we're facing. People don't realize is that without the access of data, AI can't be smarter. But people have to realize that it's their data. Why, just giving it up is, anyways, that's a whole nother conversation we've had actually on occasion as to consent. But anyways, so Europe is realizing it has to change how it's handling this definition of privacy and consent of data to be able to keep competitive to what they're doing in market for AI technology. And they've always been a good leader in technology, so they don't want to lose this opportunity. That's going to ripple to us probably next year. It's not going to really start rolling out changes until next year, but it's probably going to affect how California is enforcing its consent requirements and what have you. So there is going to be an effect to this. The reason why they bring this up is that this is going to turn into a more pervasive use of your data because less rule fences are around your data and how people gather it. Basically, when you go to a site where your consent requirement was before you can track anything, I got to give you permission to even say I was here, turns into, okay, you're now being able to track I was here, but I'm not giving you consent on having more data about specifically who I am below a certain point, but there's going to be enough data above it that if it's correlated with other data sources, you can eventually figure out who exactly I am. That's been always a problem. But again, I digress to the AI conversation in the sense of a lot of discussion about AI, a lot of discussion about the value usage of AI is always high. It's been high ever since it became a buzzword 2 years ago. The functional usability of it, that these things are producing value the way they were intended, is very small. There are big businesses that have invested heavily into it. In our space in particular, Hello Expedia, hellohotels.com. They all the OTAs have invested heavily into the let us help you with everything. Just talked to a vendor recently that was talking about AIs that would bring you to the conclusion of actually handling your transaction for you through a chat window per se, and dynamic field generation behind you or content within the chat window itself, tailored to your personally driven experience. It's a wonderful concept, but it requires a lot of access of data. Strangely enough, there's a lot of platforms that give you this availability of data, which is kind of neat. We're actually building something for this, which is pretty cool. But the idea is that AI is supposed to be helpful and create a good interaction between the user and the forced navigation that we've historically made them go through on our websites or in the ability to discover our data. If you think about it, historically and currently now, if I'm interested in the resort, I go to their website and whatever they allow me to navigate to in whatever format function that they want us to, I'm at their mercy. And there is certain, I wouldn't say best practices, but common benefits that there's a north-south rail, east-west rail, upper right-hand has certain navigation like the menu hamburgers and so forth, that everybody just kind of follows the guideline to because people expect them to work that way. They don't want to hide the menu bar someplace where the people have to discover and create frustration. Everyone says, yeah, menu bars are usually up in the upper left or right-hand corner. These kind of standard things are called best practices. Those things exist. For the benefit of this, well, there's better ways of doing this. Wonder if you were just simply to go over and have your AI system, which more and more people are becoming better understanding how to ask questions and engage with. And all of our hardware technology, phone-wise in particular, is driving us to use more of theirs, whether you're a Copilot user, a Gemini user, Meta, Llama user. They're wanting you to use it because you're using their technology. They want you to have an easier conversation. One, if you're saying, well, I was thinking about going XYZ, the more that the model with your data that it's using knows that when you're asking these questions, it's already predicated a better understanding of what that means. Like if I'm traveling to Las Vegas, okay, I don't normally ask to travel with family, so they don't have to worry about adding that into their search discovery. Usually I like a certain airline or whatever have you, or a certain brand of hotel or a certain type of hotel, certain type of hotel room, stuff like that. So all of that information is relevant to the prompt it creates for itself into the parameters of what it's searching for. And it'll get better and better at it, and you'll have to say less and less to it. You won't have to do this 2-paragraph long prompt request identifying I like this versus that, not this for this. I only want this price. I only want this. I want that. Instead, you'll be able to shorthand that as it gets more and more familiar with you. That's not right now. It's getting there the more you use the platforms that they're giving you, but it's not there. So in engagements, if we're going to offer AI as a means of engagement with our users, not just their ability to discover us, which is a whole conversation we've been having recently about optimization and SEO and so forth, but in the actual engagement process, if we can truncate that down to functional priority content, like if I'm looking for availability based on room type, I'm an ADA needing traveler, room type is more important than room rate. If I'm traveling because I want a particular view, the rate is not as much important as room type again. If it's a rate and a room type, then I qualify that saying I want something less than $300 that still has a beach view, then I'm not brand priority. I'm willing to go wherever that is a value combination that discovers. If I'm a brand loyal, I want a Marriott in a location with a beach view with under $300. That's a more confined search. All that process, okay, can be handled if it's interactive with you on your site. If you're already that place, now it's a matter of getting you to the most eminent valued product that I have based on what got you to me. So if I have an AI agent talking to your agent that's looking and communicate the data more efficiently, I show up better for your AI agent to use. So you'll see me in the answer or hear me in the answer, whichever way you want to look at it. If I have to, if your AI agent has to find the information that's most useful for them on my site, and it's not as easily discovered or not as clearly defined in relationship to what they're looking for, then I may not be chosen in the AI's answer back to you. Somebody else might be. If my rates aren't available, or they're not clear, or my room type descriptions are not there, quote unquote schema, by the way, then I won't have the opportunity to be a part of the results that are given to the user. Even though I may have probably been a good choice for them, I did a very bad job of making sure I was a good option for them in the sense of discovery. So these are the promises of AI, but that requires work. If there's no silver bullet that says plug this in, flip the switch, and we're good. Everybody wants to get to that point. We want the simplicity of that. And if you think about all the things that we use now that, 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, are not as good as they are now, we know we're progressing to that. The issue is that we have to build it, and it has to function. Right now, we're in the holiday season for domestic US and most of the Western world in particular, and actually Eastern world. I mean, there's for all the 209 countries that we broadcast to, there's usually festivities this time of year in one form or another that occupy time and featureability for any of the cultures that they're in. So we all have our distractions at this point. We all have our travel demands, our retail demands, and everything else that we're dealing with at this point. The idea of us actually tackling such an entity as this right now is unlikely. Our teams are taking vacations and spending family times. These things are going to get solved in the next 6 weeks. Next year, when we all dust ourselves back off as we get shot out of the New Year can and going into 26, going, okay, new year, new budgets, new all of that stuff. We're going to start tackling some of these things in a more pragmatic way. We're going to try to look at implementing what we thought we were going to be able to do from this time and earlier when we were going through the budget process this whole half a year. And these questions are going to come back up again. And we're going to look for hard solutions that are not as easy as we thought they were going to be and not as evolved as we had hoped they would have been by the time we needed them. So we're going to have to look at how we build things and put things together. On our podcast, we've been talking more and more about functional interface tools, the ability to use tools to create the tools you need. The RPAs, the app builder ones, these are tools that are becoming more and more valuable as they get better at what they do. And there's also a whole litany of them in contrast to each other. There's great ones, good ones, and don't even get near them because they're not doing half of what they said they're going to be doing ones. This sorting process requires more than one person's talking. I mean, I go through this and I spend a lot of fun time going and working with these tools and see if they function and don't function. I have a great group of people on hospitalitymarketing.club that we collaborate, and somebody may have tried something I didn't try yet or trying the same thing, but figured out something I didn't figure out. And that makes it fun. That peer level discussion makes it fun because you're not, we call it playtime, just so you know, we have playtime. That's our name of our live thing that we do. It's playtime. Where we talk through, not because of a task problem or what have you, it's usually inspired from one of those things, but it's a matter of really just having somebody that you could talk to, that you all have your friends that when you start talking about these things, they just glaze over and start drooling, or is it just me? Because I get ranting and raving about stuff that they really do not care about. But here's a group of peers that do, and they're just excited, if not more excited sometimes, about talking through what these things mean. So in this process, you have to go through and sort the wheat from the chaff, metaphorically. You have to find the ones that are worth using or worth hanging on to, and the other ones that are potentialed, but not quite fulfilling what it is that their potential is. And going back to our topic, and kind of a wrap-up thought process to this, when the potential is worth more than the reality. A lot of people have banked on the potential of our tools that have yet to be built, or at least the usability of tools that are being built as a solution process. We see already it physically affecting businesses. Amazon's has dropped 15,000 people. They're blaming AI, which is an automation increase. They won't get into their business model, but that was the rationale of the layering that they replaced. There is a lot of other companies that are looking to reduce internal scale of people, as less and less of what those people did have to be done by a person, in as much as they have to be monitored or overseen by a person. And automation, AI included, replaces a lot of that capability. When you think about it, a lot of the things that people do that are perspective, anything with analysts, I think we got told anything with an ist at the end of it is under jeopardy. because all the things that humans did to evaluate, which required comparisons, contrast, and what have you, is better suited to an automation or an AI, because once the outlining of the project, the breakdown of those little slides of things that I tell you about, breaking it down into little functional steps, gets figured out. When you ask the person that does the work, what do you do? Well, I log in here and I look at this sheet and I take that data and then I use that into a data sheet over here, and I log into this other account and I pull up this sheet and I pull up that data, put it over here. I compare those two to what they look like, and then I take those numbers, and if one of them stands out at this level, then I take that and put it over here. That all goes into a, oh, you don't say. Okay, we'll do that. Next thing you know, there's an automation, an RPA that's doing the functions of it, and AI does the interpretation of it. And that person's gone, well, that worked out well for me. But given that, right now we're at that stage of development, we still need that person to look over the quote shoulder of what's being done with the AI to make sure it's doing it and getting better accurate and getting the accuracy that it needs from doing that functionality. And if the person's good at what they've done, they're going to grow with that system. And they're going to be the one always one step ahead that is going to grow that system, that replace their base functionalities with advanced functionalities. And then they're going to be more advanced functionalities. And eventually, they're not going to be needed as much as to make sure it's right. They're going to be there needed to make sure they can pull the power plug if it gets errant, which is always a big thing, is the ability to hit the big red button and say stop. And just ask anybody that when they feel like they're getting hacked on their computer and they just want to turn the power thing off and they don't know how to get the power off and it won't turn off and they just freak out. Because when you lose that ultimate control, that's when it gets scary. So, theoretical on that one. Anyways, I think we've hit the concept of what I wanted to talk about when it came to when the potential is worth more than the reality. What are your thoughts on this? Do you feel that AI is what you thought it is right now, that it's doing everything you had expected it to do, or it's doing as well as you thought it was doing? Or do you feel like that it has a long way to go before you start worrying about it for what you're doing? Have you decided to rely upon solutions from AI next year that you don't quite have a clear picture on how that's going to happen at this stage of the game? Get back with me, Lauren at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com, or you can send a voice message to me or answer a question or whatever have you on hdm.news/talkback. That's an audio portion that we have interface with, which is often we get a lot of great comments from that. I know internationally we have a lot of people that watch us live, which I'm amazed at on the time zones that they catch us live. But we will recast this 11:30 Sydney, Australian, and London time for our APAC and EU and Mideast friends. To have them join into the dialogue as well if you're not already having watched us live at your weird hours. But love to hear what you have to say. Oh, and we do translate the show in 11 languages. So if you do send a response and it's hard, it would be impossible for me to send in an answer in anything other than English. And I always appreciate when other platforms say, send it to whatever language you have. We'll translate it. And if we have a question about it because it didn't translate well, we'll let you know. Same too for me. Give it to me in your native language. And you all do. Malay has been interesting to translate because anyways, it just, as I get different responses, I realize how people sometimes interpret what I say. Sometimes I talk too fast and they get pieces of it and they just, like Rosanna Dan on Saturday Night Live wasn't quite what I intended. But anyways, send in whatever language that is comfortable for you to express yourself. I'll translate it. If I have a follow-up to it, I will by certain get back with you about it if you allow me to. And of course, if you do the audio portion, you can give me the permissions of how I can refer to your comments, whether by name or just in reference that it was given, or not at all if you prefer me not to do that. You can catch us on our radio station, Hospitality Radio. That is a linear program. So at 1 o'clock is always marketing. At 3 o'clock, it's always sales. At 4 o'clock, it's always meta. Operations, I think, is 11 a.m. We have content from around the world. Great producers of content, audio-wise, that we have the shows for on the radio station. Our live show always gets recast on that as well. We do have an I Love Lucy rerun platform called hospitalitychannel.tv that has all of our shows searchable by data broadcast, topic, and hosts. And that includes our podcast on it as well. I turned on an on-demand channel on it before, and it still does. It runs linearly, where one show follows another in a progression that I've programmed. With really cute commercials in between, by the way. I was always proud of my commercials. But But now we also have an on-demand link down below on the page that if you want to just go look and discover any of the aspects of content rather than just the search bar that we had before, but now it's everything's there. You can pick just by choice and selection rather than knowing what you're looking for. We had some people that commented that they would prefer just to be able to go in and look for certain shows without having to remember the title, the number, the date, the host, but they kind of knew what I was talking about, so they can go look and it'll trigger them as, oh, I remember it was right around this time, and boom, there it is. So we put that in there as well, make it a little bit easier for you. Plus also our TV channel, which is always been on your smart TVs, Google, Apple, Amazon, Roku, all smart TVs like Samsung and TCL and all the rest of them. You can catch us on all that. Just the free channel is always there. Our Apple, our app, both on Apple and Google Play, just look for Hospitality Channel, and the live show is always available for that as well. And of course, we simulcast Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Haven't been doing X, but just haven't done X. Do Twitch. If you're on Twitch and you get your media from Twitch, we're on there. As a matter of fact, we have quite an audience on Twitch. Was very surprised. Usually it's a platform that people use to watch gaming media, but it's actually turned into more of a media outlet. And others like me are putting content like this or whatever they're doing on it as well. And it's developing quite a good audience relationship with it. They don't want to do the YouTube function all the time only. They want to do Twitch. We got good audience from Twitch. So thank you for everyone that watches us on Twitch as well. So with that, by the time we talk next week, it'll be after Thanksgiving. So happiest of Thanksgiving to all of those that are celebrating Thanksgiving in the US and abroad. And we will catch you next week. And until then, my name is Loren Gray. I deeply appreciate your time and look forward to talking to you next week.